Good evening and welcome to today's episode of Midweek Money Matters. Today we're talking about the alphabet soup of professional designations. And I have to tell you, as I was researching for today's session, I was absolutely amazed that, according to FINRA, there are 214 different professional designations. That's a lot of different titles, isn't it? And so I often have consumers who ask me, what does that mean? And I'm always amazed at some of, when people list their credentials and they list their name and then they've got, 14 different titles at the end. And it always makes me very curious as to, what does it all mean that, um, and so while I was researching this, I really learned a lot. So today we're actually going to be talking about how the professional got the designation that they have. We're going to talk about who certifies each of the different designations, or at least where to find the information to see who certifies them, because clearly I can't go through 214 different designations in 30 minutes or less. So we'll talk about what are we looking for in our professional, and we'll talk about, as always, where can we learn more. I think that 30 minutes are great time. It's a great time frame for me to give you enough information that it makes you want to learn more. So it is always my goal to provide you with where you can go to get more information. So what do the letters mean? The reality is that they have tons of different um, meanings, and they each have different types of requirements. As I was researching, I learned that certified financial planners have to they have to study more than 100 different topics on things like taxes and insurance, estate planning. Um, and they get their certification from the Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards. And they're held to um, specific ethics goals and things that they have to do. And you can also search, you can go to the website um, and for the board, and you can actually verify that person's license. Much like I encourage you all to verify the investment professional is registered through its appropriate regulator, we can actually check to see that the license is in good standing for the individuals who are helping us with our financial planning. Um, all the designations require at least some passing of an exam. Some of them actually have up to 3. And I'm amazed to learn that some of the percentages of individuals who pass the initial exams is pretty low. I came across one where the passing rate was under 50%. So I think that understanding what the letters mean is really important, but understanding what they have to do to get that designation, because a certified financial planner, it sounds like a pretty basic a pretty basic designation, but the reality is they have to go through an awful lot in order to get that certification. So it's important that we understand not only what the letters mean, but how we can find out what that individual has to do to get the designation. And then they also have a lot of ongoing requirements, just like we talked about last week, where we have individuals who have they have to consider your best interest, whether they're a fiduciary or not a fiduciary. It's important that we understand that a lot of the different designations have ethics standards that they have to adhere to. And then they also, many of them require ongoing continuing education. there was one I was looking at this afternoon that required 30 hours of ongoing continuing education every 2 years. So that's basically 15 hours a year on top of what they do normally. So I think understanding what that is very helpful. But before before you start to really look at what type of professional you want to look for, it's important that we understand what criteria we're looking for. I wouldn't want someone who's a Medicare specialist to help me with planning my estate because their specialty is for Medicare and health insurance programs. So we need to really understand what we're looking for. Of those 214 designations that I mentioned, some of them specialize on very specific things like Medicare or life insurance, long-term care insurance, those types of things. And then on the flip side of that, there are other types of professionals who are multi-purpose. So they're, like that certified financial planner that I mentioned. Their goal is to help us with sort of general financial health and retirement planning. But if I'm trying to pay off debt, then I might want to make sure that am working with an accredited financial counselor. That designation is AFC. And they can actually help you to find ways to reduce your debt and get your budget on track. Individuals who are trying to get their accredited financial counseling designation have to go through 1,000 hours of counseling experience. They have to have 3 letters of reference attesting that they are competent and they have experience, and they have to take self-study courses, and they're the ones that have to take the 30 hours of continuing education every 2 years. That's a lot of requirements. But if I'm looking for someone that I can trust, that's something that is going to mean a lot to me. However, there are other designations that can help you with that as well. So I don't like to spend a lot of time dwelling on specific designations because we all need to make those decisions for ourselves and what we're looking for. So we're going to look at how to search for the professional that you're looking for, but it's important that we understand that there are as many different organizations as there are professionals. There are a huge amount of organizations that certify different types of professionals, but it's not hard to figure out who regulates them or who authorizes them to use that designation. I was able to pull up Google and search who certifies an AFC, and that's that accredited financial counselor, and I was able to find exactly who it was that gave them that certification. And of course, that's slipping my mind right now because that's the way it goes, right? But what's really cool is we can go to FINRA's website at finra.org, and if you just search under the Investors tab, if you search for professional designations, first of all, as I said earlier, there are 214 different professional designations out there. It can be really hard to figure it out. But this here is a screenshot of what I found on FINRA's database. And what's really great is if you know the title of the professional that you're examining or checking out, you can type in that person's designation, the letters that follow their name. If you're not sure what the letters were at the end of their name, you can actually search down and you can click on the designation. And then what's really cool is you can click on that view details And it's fantastic because you can see exactly what that designation requires. What's the education requirement? What's the continuing education? What is the ethics that they have to follow? And it also tells you who offers the designation. So you can find everything that you need to know about whatever designation that you're looking for. Of those 210, you can find out exactly what that person has to go through in order to get and keep that designation, because most of them require that ongoing certification and ongoing continuing education, which I think is really important. So when you click into the view details, some of the things that you want to look at are, who is the issuing designation? Who's the issuing organization? I actually came across somebody, and it was ridiculous, but they were using HSG at the end of their name. And they listed it as if it were some form of official designation. But when I researched it, it actually just stood for high school graduate. So we have to be very careful. Just because someone throws letters at the end of their name doesn't mean anything. So we want to make sure that we research that. So again, we can go to this website, FINRA.org, click on the view details, and who is the issuing organization? What do they have to have before they even try to get that designation? One of the designations that I thought was required an awful lot of information was one that is a certified fund specialist. Now, those people are their expertise, they focus solely on mutual funds and the industry. Now, if you were here in December or November, when we talked about what mutual funds are basically a big basket of stocks or bonds, or sometimes it's a mix. But that certified fund specialist, or CFS, they have to that's what their focus is. Now, they're certified by the Institute of Business and Finance, and they have to get their continuing education, and they have all of their requirements. And then it tells you what type of exam. As I said, there are some exams that I was looking at that less than 50% of the people who take the exam pass it and are actually qualified to claim those initials at the end of their name. And then, understand what the continuing education is, because if I got my certification in 2017 and I've done nothing else to continue learning, and it's 2021, chances are things have changed and I may not be as up to date as I should be. So that's why the different designation requirements require some of that continuing education. So it's important that we keep that in mind as well. And then I was surprised to find out that not all organizations that certify a designation allow you to check the status of the professional. And I think that's a problem, but I'm not the one who makes the rules. But if you can check their status, make sure that you take advantage of that and you check their status. And, much like I tell you all every week that you can call the Office of Consumer Services at Banking and Securities and file a complaint or ask questions, you want to make sure that you know what the complaint process is through that professional designation. So if that certified financial planner that you've hired isn't doing what you think they should be doing, you need to know how to file a complaint about that. And then again, we can find out who gives that accreditation. that accreditation, knowing who gives it is really important, because again, if that HSG person, had a real legitimate designation, I would want to know who gave it and how they earned it. So as I said, I always like to provide, today's session is actually rather short, but I do think that it's really important to provide resources. So you can check investor.gov, and if you search for Making Sense of Professional Titles, that gives you an incredible amount of information about, what are the different professional designations out there and how to understand what the individuals have done in order to earn those accreditations and those designations. FINRA, which is it's the Self-Regulatory Association for Financial Professionals. So the Department of Banking and Securities registers investment professionals at the state level. The SEC is the regulator. They're the ones that register the professionals that have responsibility for a specific dollar amount or over under management. FINRA brings all of those kind of together, and they're self-regulatory. So they kind of hold each other accountable, and they have some actually really great laws and regulations that they come up with that I think are very helpful. Last week we talked about the relationship summaries, the client relationship summary that is now required to be provided to consumers that are, hiring new professionals. So that also comes from FINRA, and they have great information on the different professional designations that are available. And then NASA, which is the North American Securities Administrators Association, has some really phenomenal resources under their investor education tab. Now, NASA is the organization that the Department of Banking and Securities is under for regulating the securities industry. So securities is all the investment stuff that we cover. So NASA is, it includes Canada, Mexico, and a few other, and then all of the United States. And it's an association that works together. And the investor education team that puts information together for consumers is phenomenal. In fact, I get a lot of information from that part of the website, and then I get information from the members only as well. But that has some phenomenal resources. So that's that nasa.org, NASAA.org. So that's another great resource that you can take advantage of. Again, the Department of Banking and Securities has, the last time I looked at it, it was like 72 different publications that are available that range from anything from, oh my goodness, I've overdrawn my account, to, how do I prepare for my retirement years? There's a ton of information there. So dobs.pa.gov. And then the Securities and Exchange Committee, which again is that regulator at the federal level, they have a website that's dedicated strictly to investors, and that website is investor.gov. And they have, again, some really, really fantastic materials there that can help you with, sort of weeding through those different professional designations. And then many of the professional designations that you see, the 214, many of them are also licensed or registered as broker dealers or investment advisors. So that's going to require that they also be registered either through the state or feds, but you can check that information at brokercheck.finra.org. So Just to be clear, you want to go to the FINRA database for the professional designation information. And then you want to check your professionals with the specific designations with the issuing organization. So you can check to make sure that they're properly licensed and in good standing with that designation that they have. But if they're also licensed through as a broker dealer or an investment advisor, then they would also have to be registered through either banking and securities or through the SEC. So that's something that you can check too. I'm a firm believer that the more information, the more people we check out, the more places we can go, the better confidence we have of the professional that we're working with. And knowing that we can trust that person and understanding what they've gone through to get that license can be a huge help. Our consumer services staff, again, if you've been on any of these presentations that I've done in the past, our consumer services office is an amazing group of individuals. And I say that partly because many moons ago, I worked in that area. Before I started doing outreach, I worked in our consumer services office. And I can tell you that we answered questions from, I am losing my house to sheriff's sale tomorrow, all the way to, I've overdrawn my checking account 14 times and they're closing my account. Can you help? I've also talked to individuals who were victims of different frauds and scams, and they've sent tens of thousands of dollars. So the vast differences of calls that our staff get are pretty impressive. And so we want consumers to know that we don't think any call is silly or unwarranted. We actually had people call asking about traffic problems on the interstate. Now, clearly we couldn't help them with that, but our staff were kind enough to provide that caller with the right contact information so they could get what they needed. So again,